viewers, my name's Cara. This is also being recorded in December of 2021. I said I would probably record multiple today, but you're not going to see this one until 2022, so hello from the past. In this video, I want to do one of the progress report, where am I with fill in the blank type things that I've been saying I am conceptualizing in my head. So I've done like a where am I in my reading progress, and there's definitely going to be more of that this year because I am already planning for how I'm going to be doing my reading in the start of 2022. But in this video, I want to talk about where I have been with Unitarian Universalism, because that is one of the things that I used to do videos about quite a bit years ago, and I haven't talked about it a ton, and so I thought maybe some of you are curious about what's been going on with that. So here's an update, progress report. Years ago, I was making a lot of videos about UUism because I was regularly attending a Unitarian Universalist church and I was on a couple of committees. One of them was the Worship Arts Committee, so I actually every so often would help with doing the services or designing the services. I was also part of the environmentalist, eco-friendly bit, where, that committee before I got there had done things like set up the recycling process for the church, and we did a yearly service around Earth Day that was themed around environmentalism, eco-friendliness, whatever. Since I was part of that and worship arts, I did a lot of designing services, and since I was also one of the pagan/witch people in the congregation, when those types of services were desired, I was often called upon to take part in those. I stopped attending that church years ago for personal reasons. There were people who started coming to that congregation who were not great for me to be around. Without going into huge detail about it, I may have talked about this in videos in the past, I don't remember, but without going into huge detail about that anymore, it's not that I didn't like most of the people who were at that particular church and congregation, because I still really like a lot of them. It's not that I stopped being interested in Unitarian Universalism. It is that I could no longer be in that certain public place when a certain person or certain people who were creating personal difficulty for me would be there. Now, every Unitarian Universalist church and congregation does things differently. In that way, it kind of parallels what you all might know about paganism, witchcraft, druidry, whatever, where each coven, each grove, each circle, each whatever is autonomous. So UUism is the same way. There are those similar beliefs and views that tie it all together to make it all part of the same tradition of what is now known as Unitarian Universalism, which of course has also evolved to become what it is over the decades. But each individual congregation might have a very different style. So whenever I have talked about Unitarian Universalism in the past and I've recommended that people go check it out, I usually also say, if you happen to not love the first one that you visit, that doesn't necessarily mean Unitarian Universalism isn't your deal. It might just be that particular congregation, because they do have very different approaches, and the people who are part of that community really determine what it's going to be like. So one in one area of your state might have a completely different look and feel to it and way that they go about services and themes and whatever than the next. They might have completely different approaches. Some UU churches are the style that they will avoid saying the word God ever because they don't want that to be part of this particular experience. Others will use the word God, but they will also talk about multiple gods or goddesses or other types of spirits or, whatever. Some of them will have services that are themed around all kinds of different religious beliefs and backgrounds and paths and traditions. So one week it might be a Buddhist-based service, the next week might be pagan, the week after that might be Judaism-based, after that Hinduism, and after that Christianity, and after that something secular or atheist or humanist. It depends on who the guest speakers are, if there is a guest speaker. Often they try, most of the ones that I've been to anyway, try to have a guest speaker at least once a month. That also depends on what the situation is with their minister, is usually the term that is used. So if they have a full-time minister versus a part-time minister, they might rely more on guest speakers. Like I said, the worship arts committee oftentimes might be just assisting with services that are being presented by the minister or by guest speakers, or they might be designing services themselves. And similarly, other committees within the church might design their own services from time to time. And also the religious education department, so basically like the Sunday school for the youth of all different age levels, that also depends on the church, but I'll get back to that. Sometimes they will present services. So the services will actually be designed by the kids, which is very fun. Sometimes it's the teens, sometimes it's all of the kids together. It just depends on what it's going to be. So I've been to some very fun and interesting and different services. Religious education also differs from one to the next. I know this video is supposed to be about like where I am with UUism, but I'm also giving you an introduction to UUism, but that's fine. That's part of it. That's part of where I am with it, is always just like helping other people understand what it is. So the religious education situation might be very different from one congregation to the next as well. The church that I attended for a while had a pretty well-established religious education program, and that congregation had been around for years. They were actually able to build their own building to their own specifications. So there was specific room in the building, in the plan, reserved for the religious education classes. So there was like different classrooms for different age levels. It just depends on how much room a congregation has, because then, so I've visited multiple churches that kind of had that situation where they had the dedicated room and classrooms and teachers. There's one who is the director of religious education, and like they are a person who was hired to do that job. But then sometimes other teachers or helpers will be parents from within the congregation who might take turns assisting with the curriculum. All of that varies, like I said, depending on the congregation, but there are different curricula that are designed for Unitarian Universalist religious education programs that they might be following, and I've been part of helping with some of that stuff too. It's very fun. I've also visited UU churches that really don't have an RE department, so RE religious education. Like they might only have one space, so all of the kids have to be together in one space. They might only have one room, they might only have one person running it. So what it can be is very limited to the space they have, the people power they have, and yeah, so it can be very different is what I'm trying to convey. So I know that one of the things that I often recommend to people that they look into UUism for, like if you're pagan, witch, etc., something in this realm, people might be interested in Unitarian Universalism because of the religious education, because then, like if you have children, they will be introduced to tons of different beliefs and religions and structures. Like that's part of what happens in the curriculum. There's also usually some basic like sexual education stuff, like understanding our growing bodies as we grow up, and all of that is very open and positive. And so a lot of parents seek out UU churches if they want their kids to get kind of a more broad overview rather than being raised within a specific tradition. So part of what happens, at least at some of the congregations that I've been to, is like when the teenagers sort of age out of being in religious education and join the adult congregation, there is a service dedicated to hearing from them about what their experience has been growing up, however much time they've spent in Unitarian Universalism, getting a chance to tell us what they've learned about different religions and kind of at that point in their lives what they think their spiritual or religious leanings are. So I've seen kids come out of that saying like, I feel like I am a pagan and that's what I'm going to pursue for now going on. Or they might say, I am an atheist. Or they might say, I am really into the Quakers and that's what I feel like I'm going to explore for now. And so we just kind of get to hear from them what has become, you know, their interest or what they think they're most interested in going forward at that time. So that's very cool. But anyway, so all of that will depend. So whenever I recommend to people that, like, you check it out, like I said, they're going to be different. And the same thing is true for covens, groves, circles, whatever. Like, the one that is closest to your house and the most convenient because it takes the least amount of time to get there might not be the best fit for you personally. You might have to keep looking to find a good fit. So I didn't leave the church that I used to attend because it wasn't a good fit. I left it because of personal issues that were happening. So what have I been doing in the time since then, other than obviously still being a fan of Unitarian Universalism and telling other people about it so that they can look into it in case it sounds interesting to them too. I will say something that some of my friends have pointed out is that, like, sure, it's Unitarian Universalism, it's non-dogmatic, it's non-creedal, it's very different than, for example, a Christian church, but it is still a church environment, and some people are just never going to be into that, whether or not there's dogma attached. But if you are somebody who is interested in that kind of spiritual community, but in a different environment where you can believe very differently than the other people, but you're still a spiritual community, like, that's a thing to consider, you know. But it is still very much a churchy, like, atmosphere that they call themselves churches, congregations, like, that's what it is. So what have I been doing? In the years since I stopped attending a UU church regularly, I have still been designing services for UU churches and guest speaking. So that's primarily my involvement right now, is as a guest speaker. And I was doing just one service annually at a congregation that I actually met the person at a pagan pride event, and they invited me to come be a guest speaker to talk about pagan stuff. And I was like, that's awesome. I've actually done that before, so this would be great. So I've been doing that for the last several years. And then just this past year, I was introduced to a minister of another local UU church who was interested in having a witchcraft and paganism perspective brought to their congregation, and actually reached out to the museum where I work, and the director knows that that's something that I do, so they put us in touch. And I have only done one service at this new church so far, but we are already planning. We already have a meeting set up to plan my next one, and it'll be something that I think I do multiple times a year at this other congregation, because they really want more of that content. They have a big group of people who were very interested in paganism, magic, like that realm of religion and spirituality, like modern witchcraft, this kind of thing, my kind of thing, the thing that I do. They used to have a group, and it seems like it was kind of a couple of the different UU congregations, the people who were interested in the paganism, witchcraft, magic area, kind of combined from different congregations to have one group. Some UU churches have a dedicated chapter of the Covenant of Unitarian Universalist Pagans, or CUPS for short, but not all of them have an official chapter of that, but might still just have like a group of people who are interested in that, you know? And there might only be a few people at each congregation. So the impression that I'm getting is that multiple congregations in a general geographical area had kind of combined. And then the person who was sort of leading that group for all of them unfortunately passed away somewhat recently. And the group has not really known how to continue. So since something else that I've been doing over the last few years is community building, that is something that I've been talking to their minister about as well. How could I sort of help them help themselves? Like, get them started, show them how to be organized, show them how to have multiple people who know how to do those leadership roles, so that if you do unfortunately lose someone, either to death or to moving to another state, because, you know, there are many reasons that somebody might leave a congregation, you know, like I did. You know, there could be any number of reasons why somebody might suddenly leave a congregation, and you want to make sure that other people are poised to step into those roles, so that you're not just depending on one person to be your leader, and if they're gone, nobody knows what to do. So that is also something that I am working on helping this group with. So that'll be something that I'm taking into 2022. And I wanted to share that with you all. Again, just in case you were like, you know, you used to talk about Unitarian Universalism and you don't anymore, so that must mean you don't like it anymore, or I wonder what happened with that. That's what happened with that. So I am still involved in Unitarian Universalism congregations in my state. Certainly not all of them. There are actually quite a few here. And I have also visited UU churches in other states when I've been traveling. So I do have a bit of an idea of some of the variety that's out there. There's definitely a variety. But it is something still that I personally overall still very much enjoy. Other people don't. Not necessarily because of what actually might be going on, but sometimes some people just don't like the church environment. It is a very particular environment. So something that I like to do from a sort of theology standpoint, from a guest speaking and educating standpoint. So it's something that I've really been enjoying getting up to in the last several years, and I don't feel that I need to be attending one every single week anymore. That was really important to me at that point in my life, and I'm very glad that I had that. I got so much out of that, and now I just feel like it's a great thing to enjoy whenever I get there, to visit or be a speaker myself or whatever. But I've got so much else going on as far as like my spiritual community. I have so many other like branches to that tree now that I don't feel like attending a UU church every single Sunday is the outlet for me anymore. But that was a big part of my journey, and I really enjoyed it while I was there. So that's my progress report on where I've been with Unitarian Universalism. I will see you all next time. Thank you all so much for watching or listening to this video. I hope we're all enjoying 2022 so far. I will see you next time. And until then, don't forget to be awesome, blessed be, and goodbye.